Okay, welcome back. Welcome back to Think Tech here on Hawaii, the state of clean energy on Wednesday, Energy Wednesday. It's our favorite day and our flagship show. And today we're going to talk about clean energy expectations in 2015. I'm Jay Fidell. I care about that a lot. Another guy who cares about that a lot is Henry Curtis, Life of the Land. He comes to us once in a while. We talk about the world according to Henry, which is different than the world according to Jay. But that's okay.
Well, this is the world according to Jay and Henry.
Jay and Henry. All right. Okay. Fair enough. Henry. All right. Okay, but before we talk about that, there's plenty to talk about. There is always plenty to talk about. We're going to hear from Derrick Sonoda of Hawaii Energy. We're going to talk about need. We understand, actually, Derrick, that you have great needs.
We do. I have great needs, and a lot of my friends have great needs, but the kind of need we're talking about today is the need for education. And what we found at Hawaii Energy is we try and approach the whole community, whether you're at work, you're at home, you're a retiree, and educate them about energy issues and even energy vocabulary. And one of the areas that we found a big, huge need for was energy language education and experience with school teachers, both public as well as private. And we do this NEED program. It's with an organization, nonprofit. They come over. It's a group of professional teachers, and they teach the teachers about the current subject matter. And it's been wonderful. So far, we've had about 800 teachers go through this program. We're going to do more classes, and we're actually going to be doing what we call a next level class, which is called the science of energy. And what they do is they teach kids how to do mini energy audits. So they can go home with devices, kind of monitor the appliances and everything else, teach the parents, teach the kapuna, teach their friends and family about energy conservation and how to move forward with that. And so that people can join the conversation. So what I wanted to share with you today is we have—
What grades? What grades, Derrick?
Actually, we do from first grade up to 12th grade. And what we really found is there is a huge missing knowledge gap at the teacher level. But they have been learning quite a bit. And they've been learning so much is that we want to offer the second level again. So this next round that we're going to be doing is a combination of level 1s and level 2s. This is free to a teacher. You have to be a real teacher. You cannot be a hopeful teacher, but a real teacher. And what we do with this is we give substitute reimbursement funding to the schools to allow them to come out. When the teacher comes out, they get treated really well, very professional, very respected, and they love this. They get taught how to teach the curriculum. They get the curriculum book that's all been approved. They get 6 hands-on kits that they get to select of what they want to do to teach students about electricity and conservation. They get this all from Hawaii Energy. And what we ask them to do is to use it, to give us feedback, provide us with some new knowledge about what to do next year. And they have been wonderful. So I want to just make this announcement. February 10th, we're going to have this in Kapolei, Oahu. Please come to Hawaii Energy site, and then you can sign up. It's free for teachers. Just come up and sign
How
up.
about for ordinary people?
Not for ordinary. This is for the educators.
Okay.
Because you're going to get all these kits, and you get a binder on how to teach the class.
Okay.
And also, if you need additional support, you call up the NEED project, that's the group, and they will give you support on how to teach the curriculum right before your classroom starts. And the teachers have all loved this. February 12th, we're going to be doing this on the Big Island in Waimea. Then one more time on the Big Island on the 24th in Hilo at the Imiloa Center. And then on the 26th, we're going to be in Maui at the Arts and Cultural Center. So far, the last time we've held these classes on Big Island, especially in Hilo, we sold out. We only can hold about 50. We had almost 70 teachers knocking on their door. So it become really popular. We had a hard time, but now they get it. They really see the value. So I want to just impress, this is for teachers. And this helps the energy education.
How many hours of instruction is involved?
It's actually the full day. So you come in, it starts around 9 o'clock, and then it'll end right around 4 o'clock. But we feed the teachers everything else. They don't even pay for parking at these places.
Yeah.
So it's all about the teachers.
I went to Kohala, North Kohala,
Yes.
about 6 months ago, to make a movie about the school system up there and some of the special issues in that particular district, which is a special district, runs all the way from North Kohala to Kealakehe in North Kona. Anyway, what's really interesting is that teachers need to get out once in a while. If you say to a teacher, we want you to go to class every day and just teach those kids, I think that's not as good. I think they will agree that's not as good as if you train them once in a while, you let them talk to other teachers and mentors and professionals, one kind or another, and sort of get their heads out of the classroom and learn stuff and feel like they're arranging on more issues and they're being better educated in order to teach.
Absolutely.
This is one of those things.
And for the teachers on Molokai and Lanai, we fly the program there. But they have different kind of needs there. They don't have enough substitute teachers, so they can't do it when the other teachers on the other islands want to do this. So we accommodate their schedule, and if we have to do it on a weekend, we do it on a weekend for them. And they really appreciate that because they don't have any training like this at all. Except for our new partners of Optera. You spoke to Brian recently. We're partnering them to make sure that we don't double teach, that we work together. So there's a lot of unity there with the teachers. The teachers see us as one group coming together to teach about sustainability, renewable energy, and conservation and efficiency. That has been beautiful. The teachers get it.
The other thing I want to mention in connection with this program is I don't think people realize how profoundly important it is to teach kids about these things at a young age.
Yeah.
Because they're so impressionable.
Yeah.
We did another movie about a play at the Theater for Youth in St. Anthony's Church there a couple of years ago, and actually Blue Planet Foundation, supported this play.
Mm-hmm.
It was about sustainability and keeping things clean in the ocean and so forth. And they had a lot of songs,
Mm-hmm.
and they attached memorable words to what they were saying. And these kids were like, my kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, maybe young kids. When those kids walked out of that play, without any more than just sitting through the play, they were singing the songs, they were talking to each other about the words. It was built in already.
Yeah.
One, setting for an hour or two, and their lives, their knowledge base had changed visibly. And I don't think people understand just how profound that is, that you could teach them about energy and energy efficiency in just a short time. And these teachers will have that opportunity to change the way these kids think for their whole lives.
And I'm going to tell you one more side benefit that I stumbled upon just to wrap this all up. So there's been a strong movement for robotics at all the schools, and that's been terrific. My son is involved with it. But there's only a number of teachers at each one of the schools that can participate. And they kind of feel left out of the light of all this technology until we offered the NEED program. Now, the other teachers who are not involved with robotics, they can get on this bandwagon for energy, technology, and knowledge, and they are so happy about it because they really felt left out of the equation, but now they can participate. Thank you again, and
Wait a
Happy
minute,
New Year.
don't leave, Derrick.
Don't leave?
No, Henry hasn't done his cross-examination yet.
Oh.
Well, I always thought that we have robotic contests on roads and things like that to see robots can move on land, if they can climb steps and everything.
Yes.
It would be nice to see if we could build little robotic boats powered by solar power and see if we can have teams of students send boats between the islands.
That would be incredible. That would be really incredible.
Great idea.
But I invite you, if you want to be a spectator one of these, and these are young students from their elementary school, intermediate school, or middle school right now, and high school, they have to put a robot together with the limited resources of whatever batteries they have. And if it's too much amperage, they will lose the competition. So there's a component of learning about how to make things happen, conservation in there, and the most fundamental thing that I find and the students are telling me is they get to learn to work with adults. And that has been phenomenal because when they come into the workforce, if they cannot relate to the generations, we have a problem. But going through this robotics program, that's the number one thing that they're echoing for this is they've learned to work with mentors outside in the professional community. And that has been by far the number one check mark on all the students says, we have learned this and we found this to be the most valued, but now I can work with a real person who has a real
That's
job.
true.
And
That goes the same thing for the science fair.
yes.
And all those programs where kids have to enunciate their projects, where they work with a mentor, where the people surrounding them, asking them questions about their projects are adults. All of a sudden, for the first time in their lives, they have to engage. And I think it's really fabulous. And any program that does that is a benefit for those kids.
Well, can I toot our horn a little bit? Hawaii Energy staff, we got about 8 mentors from our group. They're helping different schools
The
around
rest of them are
the
6 years
state.
old. I'm only kidding.
Just to toot our horn, we've been helping schools around the state. So we've been
Excellent.
enjoying that.
That's
That's
great.
our free time that we do. So I do that for my son's school and we've got a whole bunch of other people.
That's great.
Yeah.
But don't go, because I'd like to discuss Henry's idea for a minute.
I will, I'll be right here.
Okay, stay right there. Okay, Henry, I am more and more fascinated with what I have come to call as insular drift. Insular drift. how the islands of our state, it's not physical, it's more social, but they move away from each other. And am I my brother's keeper? Am I my neighbor island's keeper? I don't care what happens on the other islands. I'm just interested in my island. And I want, but I don't give, this kind of thing. And I'm thinking this is not a good thing. And the family structure that has existed in Hawaii for hundreds of years is being undermined by the fact that it costs $300 to see your relatives. My wife and I had dinner with people we knew on the Big Island yesterday, and it was such a tonic to see them. We hadn't seen them in so long.
You flew to the Big Island yesterday?
No, they flew here.
I flew there.
Okay, well, maybe you were involved in this somehow. But I really feel that, we have to do everything possible to bring the islands back together, to make the people on each island get out of their humdrum daily grind life and think of the state as a whole, and go to the other islands and relate to people on the other islands and understand the problems on the other islands and so forth. We're not doing that. And your idea about a competition to have kids or even adults make boats and get from one island to another, I think this is a brilliant idea.
I picture it more, though, that we've done a great job at increasing renewable energy and electricity. But electricity is only a third of the energy picture in Hawaii. We have transportation on the ground, we have transportation in the air, and we have transportation in the water. And if we're truly to move to a renewable future, we have to tackle these other areas. And therefore, we need to be promoting competitions, educational drives to work on
Around
solving these
transportation.
other these transportation issues.
Okay, those are two good reasons then. Who's to say which the primary benefit, but they're both great benefits. And I think the state would do well by connecting, and I certainly agree the state would do well by having more people more conscious of transportation efficiency and getting away from fossil fuel. And we're going to talk more about that, as we get into the substance of our discussion today. But before you go, do you have a comment on what Henry and I are talking about?
I do. So while we teach the teachers, and we teach some other people in community about conservation and efficiency, we say that we're saving it to bring toothpaste to the islands. All the materials and everything else, let's save the electricity so we have a little bit more oil for the ships to keep coming. Because no one's making a super high efficiency, non-fuel burning ship out there. So we're gonna have to keep that alive a lot longer than the electricity pump. So whatever we can do to reduce electricity use, do the renewables and everything else, all we're doing is making sure that we can have makeup, shampoo, toothpaste keep coming to Hawaii, because glass does not grow in Hawaii. So all the windows and everything else, all your eyeglasses, they come from somewhere. We need the fuel. That's gonna be probably the last part of the equation, so we can still enjoy those things in Oahu. Otherwise, we're gonna go back to leaves.
But just as the solar industry is going through amazing technological change now, and batteries are sort of the next wave as we're beginning to enter the technological revolution to think about different battery forms. We know that transportation is coming,
Yes.
so we need to begin kickstarting it so that
Absolutely.
the change will occur.
And I believe robotics can help you with that. We have to put it to the kids to come up with creative ideas on how to move products without using fossil fuels.
Great. This is really a memorable idea, and God, please make it happen. Okay? All right.
Or goddess.
As the case may be. We don't know the answer. Thank you, Derrick Sonoda, as always.
Aloha and
When
Happy
you're
New Year,
coming
both
back,
of you.
come back soon, okay?
Take care of those big topics. I know you guys can handle
Happy
these.
New Year, Derrick.
Happy New Year.
Okay, Henry, it's you and me alone. That's why we're going to take a break. Henry Curtis, Life of the Land, here on Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy, our flagship show, generated by the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum. We're talking about clean energy expectations in 2015. We'll be back to get right into that right after this break.
Aloha, I'm Hunter Hevlin, host of Sustainable Hawaii here at Think Tech Hawaii. You can tune in every week on Thursday at 2 p.m. to see interviews with sustainability professionals from around the state and even further abroad, learning about activities with water management, food security, waste management, and a whole host of other fascinating opportunities to get engaged with making a greener island. So if you're interested in making the transition from consuming individuals to communities of producers, check us out every Thursday. Aloha.
We're back, we're live, we're here with Henry Curtis in Hawaii, the state of clean energy, talking about clean energy expectations in 2015, which is a pretty broad topic, with Henry Curtis of Life of the Land. We enjoy having Henry on the show. So Henry, it's hard to make a list of priorities on all this. So we'll just sort of scramble them and talk about, the kinds of things that we all might expect to happen in 2015. But I guess what I would ask you first, and I'm really interested in how you see this, is where are we now? What is the snapshot of where we are now on the continuum down the road to where we want to go, which nobody knows where we want to go either, I'm afraid. But where are we now?
I would say that the first place we are now is that the crystal ball has smashed.
Smashed!
In November,
You heard it here on Think Tech.
in the fall, we thought the price of oil would be high and that HECO would continue to be our utility. And just in the space of a few months, the price of oil has crashed. The price of liquefied natural gas is no longer competitive. And there's NextEra, a giant mainland utility, trying to buy our utility here. So the expectation that we had just a few months ago is completely gone, and we have a whole new paradigm facing
That's
us.
so interesting because, not you and me, because I like to think the two of us can see the larger picture about energy, but I think a lot of people just make the assumption that what is happening today will happen tomorrow. What happens tomorrow will happen the day after. And you make this kind of false assumption that basic things will stay the same. And the lesson of this to all of us, and it's a good lesson, it's a New Year's lesson anyway, is that no, plus ça change, plus le même. It's all changing all the time. You can't make any assumptions when you're involved in a transformation. Isn't that what it is?
That's absolutely true. There are, even if you're going down a straight road, if you hit speed bumps along the way, it shakes everything up. And we are being shaken up right now. A number of assumptions are being thrown out, a number of new paradigms are coming in, and whatever we design has to work for both the trend going forward and be able to handle all these hiccups and changes.
Yeah, the other changes, the ones that haven't happened yet, or the implications of the changes that just happened, which we haven't figured out where they're going to go exactly.
Absolutely.
So it's a matter of staying loose.
Yes.
And making sure that you can appreciate, you can spot, see changes, you can spot the changes, and you can react to the changes in a rational way, and we're not surprised, and we can deal with the surprises anyway. So yeah, I certainly agree with that. So let's talk about expectations. Here we are in a changed world, in a world where a lot of elements have entered the stage where we don't know exactly what the effect of that's going to be. What kind of expectations can you generate out of that snapshot?
I think the biggest one facing the state in the immediate term is the fact that NextEra has made a bid for Hawaiian Electric. And that will force a lot of issues onto the table. Right now, NextEra is having the myth that they can just continue what HECO is doing.
But why do you say that's a myth?
Well, the Public Utilities Commission is
I'm not
basically...
saying that's their plan, but I'm
Right.
saying that, if they wanted, their opportunities, their options are infinite. If they wanted to do it exactly the same way, not to say they would, but they could. They could do whatever
No.
they want.
Actually, they can't, and that's the interesting
Okay, go
thing.
for it.
In order for the merger to be agreed upon by the PUC, the Public Utilities Commission, the commission must decide two things. One, that NextEra has the money to do it. Clearly they have that. And second, that it's in the public interest.
Well, that's an interesting question.
Because the Public Utilities Commission has said that the HECO plan for moving forward is not in the public interest. They rejected the Integrated Resource Planning report written by Hawaiian Electric.
They use that term?
It's in there.
That it's not in the public interest?
Both DBED and the Consumer Advocate have said things along those lines very
PUC,
sharply.
PUC.
I think you can infer from what they've
Okay,
said
you
that
have
it's
to
not
infer.
in the public interest.
Okay,
So next era can't adopt a plan that's not in the public interest and turn around and argue that the merger is in the public
Well,
interest.
you raise an interesting question, because if you say that right now, I mean, there's so much conversation about
Right.
this, it's all over us, that what HECO has done or not done, over the past, couple of years anyway, dissatisfaction, is not in the public interest, that it's not good, that the plan is not good, and so forth, then how do you judge the new guy who comes in and he wants to improve that? Maybe by this much, maybe by this much, maybe by this much, who knows exactly? So isn't it relative?
Well,
If I say that the Nextera plan is better in some ways than HECO, and if I say that, if I assume with you that HECO's plan is not in the public interest, then I could come to the conclusion, logically, that Nextera's plan is more in the public interest. It's not absolute, it's relative, than HECO's plan is in the public interest. So how do you deal with
one
that?
approach, and there are a couple approaches. One approach is to say that Nextera has to lay out their plan to the Public Utilities Commission to convince the commission that their plan is in the public interest.
Don't you think that'll happen?
I think
I mean, if I were Nextera, I'd do that anyway, wouldn't you? I would do that.
But if you do that, it opens up the number of issues that are being discussed before the Public Utilities Commission. It would slow down the whole process while all of it is aired.
Well, that's an interesting question. I guess I agree that if you put it all out there, and then you open it up for public discussion, how public is another question, whether it has to be this public or this public or this. Then the question is, are we going to go through the process of approving the whole plan they have in mind before we can conclude the acquisition is in the public interest? Because that sounds pretty tedious.
Right, and the other approach says, why don't we break the process up into two steps? The first step is, why don't we as a state figure out where we're going? And then figure out whether Nextera is the one who can get us there.
That's an interesting way to look at it, because over the past, I'll say back to 2008, if you don't mind, we've been looking for a plan, and there isn't one. And Lord knows how many times the word plan has been used or required. Really, I mean, I don't think there's anybody who will get up and say, oh, there it is, it's there. It's not there. And so if we couldn't do it in 6 years, almost 7, how can we do it now?
Well, some people would argue, and I'm not saying that I would be one to support this, but some people would argue that the Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative was a plan that was implemented.
The agreement. you mean.
The agreement, and it worked for a few years, and now that there have been changing dynamics within the energy picture, that it needs to be updated and replaced. And when the HECO could not come up with a plan, the Public Utilities Commission published inclinations on where they wanted the utility to go. And therefore, the inclinations would be the basis of a new plan.
It's a process. I mean,
It's a process.
I remember I was there in November of 2008. I was there in Linda Lingle's office with Ted Lieu and all the guys from Hawaiian Electric. The industry was there. Were you there too?
No.
Oh, it was really interesting. So I turned to one of the press guys next to me, one of the public relations guys, I guess, and I said, "What is this agreement? There's over 100 pages in this agreement. It's brand new. The public hasn't seen it till today. What is this agreement? Give me the essence of this agreement." And he said, "It's an agreement to agree, nothing more." That's like a Christmas tree without the ornaments.
Right.
And so, I take that seriously. As a legal point of view, that's what you have, an agreement to agree, and you have to put the ornaments on it. You just have the basic structure. I don't know if you could even say that it's the basic process either. You still have to find a process. We never really found one, actually, right? So the question is, if you wanted to find a plan right now, how would you do it, honestly, in a way that it wouldn't take forever, in a way that it would, A, take into account what everybody was saying, but at the same time not get twisted by any one group, something would actually get the job done. How would you do that?
Well, the number one, one of the concepts we would think of is separating generation from transmission. To say that the utility handles the grid. They don't own any generation, and therefore they don't play their generation off against other people's generation. That you get an entity that specializes in grid management, and you get other companies that specialize in generation. And therefore the interconnections become a lot simpler because you're not you're not promoting your own. And therefore, if you say to whoever is acquiring the utility, you have to spin off either the generation or the transmission and focus on just one of those issues.
That's a problem. I mean, just thinking as a observer. But if you come in and do those, that's a profound change. And one could argue that that's a change that will ultimately have to happen anyway down the line. That we are talking about transforming our whole system here, not only in the state of Hawaii, but elsewhere. But if you do that, this is complicated. If you do that, then you're changing the basic economics of being a utility. You're changing the basic economics of being Hawaiian Electric as a utility, and you're changing the deal. Whatever deal they have, whatever valuations, whatever due diligence they've done, whatever understanding they have of the nature of this business, those things would have to change. And so if you're NextEra or any acquiring company, you'd say, wait a minute, this is not what we bought into. This is something different.
But
and we have to go back to the drawing boards, and we have to see if this kind of approach gives us the same kind of pricing structure that we negotiated for. And so I think
by a Texas transmission company. And that deal fell through when somebody else came in and offered more money. So they had this money that was going to go for transmission only, and they switched it to Hawaii that has both. But they could be just focused on transmission. It may be there are many entities who feel that a co-op model would work better, or that MECO and HELCO should be independent of HECO. A co-op should exist, whether it's on Molokai or Lanai or Maui or the Big Island. There's discussion that that is the move we should make, because if you look at Kauai Island Utility Co-op, they were able to put on far more renewables faster than Hawaiian Electric has been able.
I think they're very instructive. KIUC is very instructive. There are many lessons to be learned from them, honestly. But let's take a break. I think my head is splitting with all these possibilities. Henry Curtis, Life of the Land, here on Energy Wednesday, Hawaii, the state of clean energy. We're talking about clean energy expectations in 2015. I'm Jay Fidell, and I'll be right back. And Henry will too, promise me. He promised.
Hi, I'm your host on Think Tech Asia, Bill Sharp. I look forward to you joining us each Monday between 4 and 5 o'clock when we film right here in our studio in downtown Honolulu. The show, Think Tech Asia, focuses on contemporary events in Asia. And by Asia, we mean anything from Hawaii, south to Australia and New Zealand, west to Pakistan, and as far north as the Russian Far East. Clearly, this is one of the most economically dynamic centers of the world, and we bring you up to date on what's going on in a whole host of countries in this very vital region. We look forward to seeing you. Aloha.
Okay, we're back. We told you we'd come back, Henry and me. We came back. We never went anywhere, right here. Henry Curtis, Life of the Land, and Hawaii, the state of clean energy. We're talking about clean energy expectations in 2015, and we've only covered one of about 6 things we want to cover, so we're going to...
And I want to add one thing to what we were discussing.
Please. What we were discussing was the changes that some people feel might be necessary to the utility as a condition for finding that the deal with NextEra is in the public interest.
There is one thing that's sort of become popular among certain individuals and groups is speed dating. You go to a booth, you talk to somebody for a moment, you get up, you go to the next one, you talk to another person for a moment, you sort of test out different things, and then you pick somebody to go out with. It's almost as if HECO had speed dating and they stopped after the first conversation and said, that's the company we should go with. We have no idea as consumers, as ratepayers, as residents, whether the first one is the ideal one.
Yeah, but that's the nature of private industry, Henry.
So,
If I want to sell my company or the assets of my company, the only people I granted the PUC has some jurisdiction here, but the only people I really have to talk to in the private sector are my directors, my directors and my stockholders. Once they want to do it, I don't have to go and have an RFP about who might buy.
I agree that as a private company, you are free to discuss with whoever you want, and therefore HECO is free to discuss with whoever they want. But the Public Utilities Commission balances the special interests of the utility with the public interests of the community, and their job is to balance the two, and they may decide that HECO was premature in just grabbing the first
I think
person
what you're
that came
saying
along.
is that the Public Utilities Commissions can say, well, we don't like that deal, keep going, keep trying, and they come back again in 6 months. We don't like that deal either, keep going, keep trying. And the result is that the Public Utilities Commission is essentially making a business decision for the utility. And I'm troubled by that. So
Okay.
I would say on the many, many things that you and I agree on, this is one where we actually don't.
Okay,
All right, fair.
okay, that's
Still
reasonable.
friends, still friends. Okay. The Public Utilities Commission. I mean, we've been talking about it for the last 20 minutes, so it's in the ring here. We have a chair who is in limbo still, a month after the new governor was sworn in. And we have two other possible chairs from the existing commissioners. We have, I think, a lot of people who might be interested or qualified to be a commissioner, I guess. We're not going to name names here today. But a lot of this thing with NextEra, I mean, by virtue of this discussion itself, and all kinds of other aspects of the snapshot we took early
Right.
on, depend on the PUC, and therefore, there's only three of them. It depends on how they work together and who the chair is. I mean, it's critical. In fact, flipping it over for a minute, until we get a new chair on this, we're kind of stuck, don't you think?
We're right now spinning circles, trying to figure out. I'm sure that Hawaiian Electric and NextEra are in some room somewhere, going through all the paperwork, going through all the financials. They're hiring lobbyists, they're hiring consultants, and the Public Utilities Commission is looking at expanding its existing office space, but they don't have direction to figure out where they're going. And normally the utility is way up here in terms of its power, and the commission is very small. But until you put a chair in, it seems to me that it's even a higher split.
And the other thing is, yes, I mean, we're in the same place, but the other thing is that you need to have countervailing expertise
Yes.
in the commission as you have in the utility. And if the utility is going to be a national utility, and this is arguably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, national utility, you have to have countervailing expertise. And regrettably, the PUC doesn't have that. The PUC, I remember one of your blog articles, the effect that there's an exodus, I think was the word you used, of people from the PUC, and every time somebody does an exodus, they lose their expertise. So we have to set things up so they get that back.
And one of the things I noticed is that Hawaii Energy just came in with Derrick. If Derrick wanted to take a staff attorney from the Public Utilities Commission, he has to wait a year after the person has left the PUC because of post-employment contract requirements. If Hawaiian Electric wants to take somebody from the PUC, they can negotiate while the person is working at the PUC, sign a contract while the person is at the PUC, and then pull them immediately into Hawaiian Electric. So it sets up a weird relationship where Hawaiian Electric can figure out who is involved in different dockets and then pick the people that
Wouldn't
are
that be a conflict?
hugely, but legal conflict.
Mm.
They're allowed to do that.
I wonder if it was a lawyer, whether the legal, rules of professional responsibility would apply to make it a conflict regardless of any other consideration. I mean, he's got his, excuse me, professional obligations, which, surmount any contract that he might have for employment.
Right, but as long as Hawaiian Electric says we're putting you in a different department, so you're not technically dealing with what you dealt with at the PUC, then, and we'll have a Chinese wall so that you're not actually talking to the person at the next
Nobody
desk
likes
over.
Chinese walls. Nobody likes Chinese walls.
Right, so
If you didn't know what a Chinese wall is, you probably should. You want to define a Chinese wall?
a
Go ahead,
Chinese
Henry.
wall says you have two people working in the same company and technically they can't talk to each other because one of them has a conflict with some other outside entity.
So the conflict doesn't contaminate the whole company or firm. And it's always nerve-wracking to have a Chinese wall. I mean, I've seen situations where you have locked filing cabinets and the other guy in the same firm can't get into that filing cabinet because it's a Chinese wall.
And it's interesting because within Hawaiian Electric, the planners have a wall between the people who actually do things. And that's not a Chinese wall, I don't think, but they just,
It's just de facto, yeah.
they have some kind of wall between them.
Well, anyway, I mean, we have to figure out, all of us, the community, energy community, have to figure out a way to allow the PUC to develop the necessary expertise. It's probably diminished over the past few years rather
Yes.
than, gotten more robust. And now, at this point especially, I think Henry and I agree, there should be as much expertise as we can possibly provide. Funding, rule changes, whatever it takes to get that kind of expertise.
And you probably need to bring people on outside of civil service because you need to get them quickly in place. You need to build up the PUC staff very quickly to handle this specific issue of the merger.
Yeah, I never understood why we didn't do special things with the PUC way back in 2008, actually. I mean, the PUC was established 100 years ago for trucks and telephones, which don't require a whole lot of regulation or staff or expertise. Well, telephones did for a while. But now we're in a different place because we're in a transformation period for energy. We're inventing something on the fly, day by day. We don't know where we're going to wind up and how the world is going to change while we try. We only know there'll be change. And the problem is, we need to have a PUC that can come forward, that can be as modern as anything in the world, and that is not locked in ancient concepts or rules or requirements or obstacles.
And can look at the alternatives that are available. So what we do is we maximize the value to the residents of the state rather than maximizing the value to the shareholder or to the management at Hawaiian Electric Industries.
Oh, it's effectively a monopoly, and we have to regulate it.
Yes.
It's that, monopolies need to be regulated, and for a good part of the state, this is a monopoly. It must be regulated with due regard for all the economic interests involved. Yes. And I think we have to collectively, as a community, wake up to that, and we have to provide an agency that we'll be proud of.
Yes.
That we'll be able to say we're happy that represents everyone in the room. Because
Yes.
the energy community is even the Energy Policy Forum is 50 people involved. You can tell there's a lot of stakeholders there. Anyway, okay, so that's the PUC. That's so interesting. Let's go to another one. We're never going to finish our list. We're almost done with the 45-minute show. I'm sorry, Henry. You'll have to come back, Henry.
Okay.
Okay, interconnect. Not necessarily in order of importance, but interconnect bothers a lot of people. And I don't know if you saw this article by Marco Mangelsdorf the other day. It's sad that the PV industry is in a further decline without a great prospect of renewed sales or increases in sales. Meanwhile, oil is going down. The whole thing is like deflating. What are we going to do about it? And I saw an ad on TV last night where the guy said, I'm not going to name names, where he said, don't worry about it. Those other guys, they can't deliver a connection, but I can. I'll get you connected one way or the other. I said, my God, he's broadcasting on TV. He's saying those things. Can he say those things?
Well, if he says that I will move you from where you currently live to a circuit that doesn't have much solar on it.
I mean, I haven't heard any real progress on this, have you?
No, what I have heard is that the solar industry and Hawaiian Electric are negotiating terms for interconnect, and they're like moving closer and closer together, but they're still far apart. And each meeting, they think the next meeting might resolve it, but then there are more issues. So it's an ongoing process.
And the complications seem to grow. You mentioned that there's I told you that on the 16th there's the legislative briefing in the state capitol. On the 16th, the legislative briefing in the state capitol, and come at 1:30, and it lasts until 3:45, and there'll be, a lot of speakers, try to get all the issues in the room, and then we'll have an integration panel, we call it, where these guys will try to integrate everything that's been said and make some sort of long-term takeaway sense out of it. That'll be a really interesting discussion for the benefit of the legislators, but public is invited. So that one, I can tell you, I'm involved in the planning of it. That is going to be really interesting. But Henry reminded me that on the 20th, is it?
Yes.
There's another one coming up in January, and this is a sort of continuation or response opportunity from that hearing back in, was it August or September?
I think.
Where the two energy committees called the utility down to answer questions, or was it? And the PV guys are all ticked off at them, and it was like raw meat kind of hearing. And now this is a sort of a continuation of that. What is going to happen on
We
Sunday?
understand that on the 20th, the legislators are bringing Hawaiian Electric in to sort of have their response of how they're progressing on getting rooftop solar integrated into the grid. The meeting I believe is starting at 1:30, and so that will be another event. And that points out that here there are two major events occurring before the legislature opens on the 21st. And so energy, which a month ago, 2 months ago, was thought to be sort of a back burner issue in this legislative session, has suddenly jumped out to one of the one or two major issues that the legislature will be grappling with.
Grappling. That's
Grappling.
the operative word, grappling.
Yes.
It's more complicated now than it's been ever since 2008. And watch and see what happens. And hopefully the right things will happen to keep the lights on, that's number one, and also to bring us into clean energy already.
And as a criteria that I use is hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. Assume that things are going to be really tough, which requires us all to step up to the plate and really fight in this next 6 months to make sure that something good comes out.
Fight? Don't be
Fight.
contentious, Henry.
Fight doesn't have to be contentious. Two football teams can fight each other to win a game, and that's better than, I think, having the whistle blow in the beginning and the ref come out and say, we're going to mediate this game. Oh, it's 42-16, you can all go home.
I wish I could say the transformation of energy in our state is a football game, but it is not. I want to close with one recollection. Sharon Moriwaki and I went to the island of Lanai, and we found to our surprise that, well, not really our surprise, that all the people in Lanai, didn't like wind. And we said, what do you like better than wind if you don't like wind? To a bunch of high school kids, because this took place in the high school there in Lanai. And one woman, she was really cute. She said, we like PV. We like PV everywhere. And I said to her, well, yeah, but how are you going to watch television? How are you going to deal after the sunset? Because there's no power after the sunset. What are you going to do? She says, easy. We'll just go to sleep early. So that's a solution, or one of the many solutions. We're not ready for that, but there are some people anyway who feel that's really healthy.
The more sleep is better, especially when you're getting older. You need more sleep.
You heard it here on Think Tech with Henry and me. Henry Curtis, Life of the Land, here on Hawaii, the state of clean energy, talking about clean energy expectations in 2015, and we are not yet done. Aloha, Henry.
Aloha, Jeff.